to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Welcome back to our very, very distinguished guest. Harvey, it's such a pleasure having you on today. Let me get Michael Cutler, who's a terrorism expert, immigration expert. Michael, you've been listening to the conversation. What questions would you like to ask of our guest, Harvey?
Well, hi, Armstrong, and hi, Harvey. Good to join you. I agree with the need for privacy. Benjamin Franklin famously remarked that if you're willing to exchange privacy for security, then you will have neither, or security for freedom for security, then you'll have neither. But my concern is what happens if the bad guys, whether they're criminals, transnational gangsters, the terrorists have done a lot of traveling in order to attend meetings, make preparations, and so forth. Is there any vetting process that you do to at least try to determine the bona fides of those people who would subscribe to your service?
It's extremely difficult to do that type of vetting on a mass scale basis, and so we don't actually engage in that. We do ask for an email address as an anchor point, for the app, but we don't ask for anything further than that, at this time. Clearly, once you come to pay for it, you obviously have to supply some credit card details in order to fund that purchase, and that would give us a little bit more data on the individual or the corporation buying it. But we
yes
are
and no.
We're taking privacy quite seriously in order that we don't actually use people's information, and so that's the downside of taking that privacy quite seriously. That said, if it does get into the hands of bad guys, and I'm talking about bad guys who actually use telephones, of which the seriously bad guys don't tend to do that, or not since, I guess, 97, when they realized that was a bad thing to do. There are measures and there are actions that we can take in working with law enforcement to mitigate some of those risks, not least turn them off.
Yes, the reason, again, in 97 that they decided not to use phones so much, in fact, in my experience, they were using snail mail, mail drops. We saw where bin Laden was using couriers because the understanding was as soon as you go on the grid, you're firing a flare in the air. But if you're providing a means of running silent and running deep, in a manner of speaking, this might convince them that it's now safe to go back in the water, don't you think?
Well, you're semi-silent. You're certainly much more silent than you were before. But I think that there's a couple of points. If you use Secret on the Verizon network, you still have a footprint on that Verizon network. And so you've still got that metadata associated with that network, even though it wouldn't be possible to tell who you called. The second thing is, like any encryption, it can be broken if you've got enough computing power and time and effort, to do it. And so somebody of extreme interest, I think, you would find that the agencies, took the time in order to in order to
Understood. Here's my question,
try and understand
though,
what was going on.
When lock manufacturers manufacture a lock, whether it's a bank vault or a little padlock that you put on your locker at the local health club, every lock has something known as defeat time, how long the average lock pick or locksmith would need to defeat the lock. It may run 30 seconds to 5 hours. How long would a major computer need to unencrypt, if you will, a covert message, presuming you had the best equipment? Let's say it's the U.S. government. They're on the trail of a guy running around with a nuclear device or a weapon of mass destruction. They know that this is his phone call. How much time would it take for them to decipher it?
It's still going to be several months. And
Wow.
I think one of the key points here is that every time you make a new call, you get a new key. And so even if you deciphered one message, you would have to start again on the next message. But one of the points...
Let him finish his points, Michael.
I would just make is that seriously bad guys who are trading in that sort of league these days would very unlikely be using a phone.
Well, up until now, but if they become convinced that your program is that secure, that could change the dynamic, couldn't it?
Well, it would alter the dynamic a little bit, but it still has vulnerabilities. And the vulnerabilities, as I say, is you have to connect to the internet in order to make a data call. And so if you were that security sensitive, then you probably wouldn't even want to be considering that type of vulnerability. You would probably want to be completely off the grid. And so what we've seen commonly before is people using phones for one-time calls, as I'm sure you're aware, and they throw the phone away. And so that's probably a more likely route that you would go. And then certainly, when you come to places like Europe, I mean, even where we sell SIM cards in Europe, you tend to be videoed on surveillance where you actually buy the SIM card, and so people might actually wait 3 months or something like that for that video to expire before they even use that SIM card in a one-drop phone.
Right.
Tell us how this works with Skype, texting, emails, and for those that are just joining us, how it works with a telephone.
So at the moment, we're available on Android phones and iPhones, and essentially at the beginning of each call, it sets up what we call public-private key encryption, and so it exchanges a mathematical encryption key. And we use two ciphers. It's a little bit technical, so AES 256, which is commonly regarded as an extremely strong cipher. We essentially do that twice to make it super strong. And you set up the call, and once the call is set up, as the voice streams off the phone, it's encrypted and decrypted at the other end using the engine and the app at the other end. When you hang up that call, those encryption keys are shredded, the metadata is erased, and when you obviously go to make another call or send another message, then you go through the same process again and you generate a new set of keys.
So it works with the iPhone.
It works with an iPhone. You can use it on an iPad. You can actually even use it on an iPod. In a Wi-Fi environment, and then it works on 2,500 Android devices. Come the end of September, the beginning of October, we will also have it available on BlackBerry 10 and Windows Mobile.
I'm headed to Europe this week for vacation. I have the iPhone. I'm going to try it. I like these new apps.
And one of the things you can do, and we see a lot of our customers doing this, is they come to the UK, for example, and they buy a 1 gigabyte SIM card from the shop, and they put it in their phone, and then obviously they can make calls home, and they just use that £10 or $15 worth of data during the month that they're here, and all their calls are free. After that, it's a fixed price. That's it.
So what I should do is get a SIM card once I get to Rome.
That's exactly right. From the airport, they will show you data SIM cards, and you literally buy a data SIM card, you put it in your phone, and the nice thing is your secret number, which is a secure number we give you, is a constant. That's the same. So people in the United States would still know what your secret number is, even though you're connecting via an Italian network or English network or whatever network you might be on.
Well, I'm going to be in Italy for the entire time.
Very nice.
Well, and so you get to save lots of money by using this.
Well, we do, and we have a lot of customers, actually corporates, who start off on the security side, looking to protect their international business, and quickly, the discussion moves to the finance director, who suddenly realizes he can save a bunch of money. And when you put the two together, saving money from international calls and security, it becomes quite compelling. Now, clearly, if you're just making a call from, New York to New York, then probably the call on your local network is near to free anyway, so it's not going to make very much difference. But once you start racking up calls from overseas, and I can tell you if you use, for instance, your Verizon phone in Italy, the charges may be quite significant, you can then start to save quite a considerable sum of money.
How would this new data SIM card affect my data plan if I'm on, say, Verizon's network normally?
Well, you just swap. So you've got your plan with your SIM card on Verizon. It might be 4G, have as much data as you want. When you get to Italy, you literally pop out that SIM card. You put in a 1 gigabyte, for example, pay-as-you-go Roam SIM card. And then the phone connects to the Roam network, the Italian network. And you just make calls again over that data communication line on your secret app. Again, when you get back to the United States, you take out your 1 gigabyte SIM card and you put back in your Verizon one.
Michael?
I don't know that Verizon uses SIM cards. I remember when we bought the phones, they said that Verizon didn't use SIM cards, but I could be wrong. I'm not a tech guy.
Well, actually, you're correct. And Verizon might be the wrong example because I think they use CDMA. So I'm not.
That's
sure
okay.
that
I have the
SIM
Apple.
cards in
Apple
phone.
use SIM cards, without a doubt.
But
Well, look,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that CDMA technology is really unique to certain networks in the United States and I think South Korea. Otherwise, pretty much the rest of the world does use SIM cards.
Well, man, it has been a pleasure having you on. Oh man, it's just been a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for staying up so late in the UK to join us for this very important show. And how can they find out more about Secret Crypt?
Well, thank you. And look, any of your listeners can go to the website at www.secrypt.com, and they can find out a lot more about the product.
Secretscript.com. Look, Michael Cutler, Harvey, thank you both so much for joining us. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Reagan here. The president has just delayed his Obamacare employee mandate for 1 year. But nothing has changed. The Congressional Budget Office still predicts 7 million Americans will lose their current insurance, and thousands of rules are being implemented today. Obamacare is over 20,000 pages, almost 3 times longer than the whole IRS tax code. Worse, the IRS is now in charge of enforcing the law. You need to protect yourself, your family, and your business with the easy-to-read guide. It's called the Obamacare Survival Guide. Already a #1 New York Times bestseller, Newsmax calls it the best guide to the new law. Get the Obamacare Survival Guide today at bookstores everywhere, or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price by going now to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Elder Chicks is an exciting part of the fastest growing segment of the population. Women in their 70s, 80s, and older who are mastering the art of a senior life. We're no longer unseen and unheard. We're providing role models for each other and the baby boomers who are fast approaching retirement. Join our virtual community. Hit www.elderchicks.com on your computer keyboard.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to the broadcast. Maxie. Where's Maxie? Dr. Gary Barnard, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Armstrong?
I'm doing good. Talk to us about the power of parent. Michael Cutler, you still with us?
I'm still with you, Armstrong.
Okay,
I
no
haven't
problem.
gone away.
Dr. Gary Barnard, talk to us about the power of parent.
The power parent. Well, today I've been thinking about how, as parents and as just people trying to make it, there's a lot going on, and I'm a simple guy, so I like to keep things pretty simple. And simple models that are portable, those that we can kind of pick up and take with us and use across the board, work pretty well for me. So I thought I would just mention that if you take this concept of a target, where you have a bullseye and then the outer rings go all the way out to the periphery, that defines the target. Well, the idea would be focus on the bullseye, which is relationship, teamship, staying connected, and then keep that focus firm and fixed. So our mantra would be keep it focused on the bullseye, firm and fixed. And then the periphery are things like traditions, cultures, behavioral expectations, rules, that sort of thing, and keep that flexible. And that usually serves us pretty well. What we find usually, what I find with me and I see in other folks, is when we're under a lot of stress and a lot of conflict, we typically turn that around. And we try, because of our lack of control, we try to be controlling. And so then we focus on the bullseye, which then is the rule, all of the structural kinds of things and expectations. And then we cast the relationship out to the periphery. And that's when we typically find that we get in trouble. So I wanted to start by mentioning that. There are a lot of places we can go. Parenting, I think it's true when we're trying to come up with public policies at the school level, local level, even at our federal level. If relationship is at the core, typically we're in better stead when we're trying to problem solve.
Mike Cutler, your question for Gary Barnard?
Sure. How do people deal with the stresses today that we're finding with more and more kids who are moving back to their parents' homes because they are either unemployed, underemployed, trying to pay off student loans, and having financial issues that are causing, I guess they call them boomerang kids?
Right. We're seeing a whole lot of that, and it is a huge stress on parents and the adult kids that are coming back. It's just, for us, it's an unnatural thing. I think in times past, we saw that a bit more, and we're returning to it. So I think the model here would be focus on the relationships. You got to get some basic expectations down. The periphery is important. It's the boundary that defines the target, and we want to hit the target, but we want to stay focused on the relationship. So it seems that if we will focus on our reason for being connected, even when a kiddo has left, gone off to college, or whatever the case may be, and they return, then we want to just keep reminding each other that's our primary goal, focus on the bullseye. But we want to get some basic expectations down so that we're on the same page and we're not surprised. See, they've been out and they're used to coming in at any time they want, sleeping in maybe. We're not used to that, and it can be very disruptive to parents and their way of living. So some of those kind of things have to be discussed, and you have to get some basic guidelines down. But we do that even with guests when they come and stay at our home. We're not going to allow them to just come and go at any hour of the night.
Right. And tell them, no smoking and whatever else it is that,
Exactly.
Well, that would... But you are seeing a lot more of that now, aren't you?
Yes, a whole lot more. To the point where even young folks into their 30s and they've established some very interesting patterns of avoidance, and then parents feel trapped. They don't want to, quote, kick them out on the street, but they can't keep living that way, and so they're in a big dilemma. And so I'm even, as a child psychologist, seeing families of adult kids where they're coming in saying, we need help. We're about to explode. We don't know what to do. We don't want this to end badly, but it has to change.
Do you think the parents should take them in?
Well, yeah, if you can agree on the purpose of bringing them in.
What do you mean? What is that agreeing on? You already know what it is. They're struggling, and they need to fleece off you for a while. They can't make it on their own.
Well, yeah, but that needs to be defined. What's acceptable as a time frame for you to get on your feet?
I don't think there are any rules when
you're concrete.
I don't think there are any rules when your adult child comes back home. I think it's all to their favor and more to the disadvantage of the parents because it's totally disrupt their life.
It is. That's why you have to set some boundaries. It can't be an open-ended deal. It's like any contractual agreement. You want to focus on the purpose of the connection and the agreement, but you have to establish guidelines. And when people err from that, they breach the contract, it's over. And a lot of times it ends badly, but you do have to have an upper limit. And it needs to be set, and both parents need to be in agreement on it.
What should be the determination for a parent to say yes, and what should be a sign for the parent to say no?
I think, like in any case, history dictates most of that. Base rates are what we go on to make predictions about the future. If we haven't had a good history with our kids following through and cooperating, the answer is no from the get-go. You just say, no, that hasn't worked, so we're not doing that again. If you've had a decent history where the kiddo has worked with you and they haven't been freeloaders, then that's when you sit down and you kind of strike up a deal. And typically it can work.
Just two quick questions that come to my mind if I can jump in. Number one, I guess what also helps to smooth the way, or may, is if the returning kid agrees to do some stuff around the house to pull their weight. But do you also go to the point of counseling parents and their kids when they're thinking about college and saying, you better think carefully what degree you want, because if you study remedial basket weaving, you may enjoy the course, but it won't translate into a job that will give you the kind of economic security you need.
Yeah, I think we're derelict in our responsibility to our kids if we haven't discussed that way before college. But many times our kids are going to be stubborn, strong-willed, and they'll choose what they're going to choose. we have to decide if it's a deal breaker, then we wouldn't pay for that education. And that would be the first thing. Now, that seems pretty harsh, but if it's a deal breaker for us, knowing that they might not make it and then they might be returning, we need to just say, we're not okay with that, sorry. But it seems to me like that needs to be thought about way before we send our kids off to college.
How prevalent is it that parents don't seem to be doing that, in your experience?
Very. It's the rule, not the exception.
How do we deal with it?
Well, we got to wake up. That doesn't work. We need to get the word out. People need to be aware of the trend and try to do something different, which is sit down and start having discussions with our kids. What are our expectations? You know,
what if the parents are struggling and can barely make ends meet?
That's one of the realities that goes into the formula of figuring out what we can do for our kids. I don't think it makes sense to deny that, stick our head in the sand, and make promises or pretend like we can pay for things that we can't. That doesn't make any sense. So we just need to be upfront and say, we're not able to do as much as we would like. So you're going to have to do more of this. You're going to have to take on more of the debt or responsibility. We'll help as we can, and here's what we think we can do. Now, it seems to me like that's fair. You know, we need to let our kids know what we can and cannot do. But what I usually see is parents aren't willing to do that. For pride or whatever reason, they pretend like they can do whatever. They take on this, and then the reality is they can't really sustain it.
You know, they can't sustain it. But what is realistic when you enter into a contract like this where it's very emotional and all common sense and it goes out the window?
Well, you just described the real crisis point there. When emotions get up in the driver's seat, you just can't predict where it's going to go. And that's
Hold that point. Michael Cutler, Dr. Gary Barnard. We're coming back. I'm Armstrong Williams.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sports shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Are there many situations where the parents move back with the children, Dr. Barnard?
Later in life, we're seeing more of that, yes. But mostly because of the availability of, assisted living and full skilled nursing care homes. We're not seeing it as much as you would think, because as people are living a lot longer, there are a lot of folks in their 50s and 60s that are either taking their parents back in or making the decision that they can't do that, and that's primarily what's happening, and placing them in some type of skilled nursing home.
I guess sometimes we don't realize just how much this economy continues to tank for the younger generation. I don't want to do them a disservice by saying they want to give up and run back home, but they really feel that their wits end, and it's not something they want to do.
No, not at all. Well, some do, but again, that's not the rule. That's the exception. And see, we're going back to that model again of relationship. If we just, as parents, we can't control that relationship. We have to set the stage for it early in life. We have to feed it, but it's a two-way deal. And if our kids get to a certain age and they're not pulling their weight in the relationship, it would be irresponsible of us, for ourselves, but also for our kids, to pretend like that's a healthy relationship and us take it on. See, that's part of the limit setting or the boundaries that we need to set. Nobody else is going to do that with them, for the most part. I mean, we do see some of that, even with entitlements, but for the most part, that's not the way the world works. We don't need to be doing that with our kids unless they're willing to cooperate. And as the other guest was saying earlier, we need to set up some of those rules. You got to pull your weight around here. We're not doing your laundry, and you're going to help clean the home or whatever we need done. And if you can't do that and be cooperative and be a team member participating fully, then you shouldn't get the benefits.
But I have to make a comment, but doesn't it seem that if a kid was given the proper upbringing in the first place, that those values should have been imbued? Some kids are just hard cases, but
yes,
you know what I'm saying.
Yes. I do, and that is generally the way it works. It really is.
So you must have a heck of a challenge dealing with a parent who turns around and now realizes what they've unleashed on the world, and now they want to dial it back. How do you do that?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, it's a really...
they've created the monster, if you will, perhaps, or contributed to it.
No, well, that's true. And, you don't want to be one that takes the position that you always cast blame, because the blame thing isn't going to help at this point anyway, but you have to think in terms of responsibility. That's the parent's responsibility. And, okay, you shirk your responsibility. Now what are you going to do? It's the same with anything that we take on in life. It just has huge consequences with our kids, because more and more with the kind of stressors we're living with, economic and otherwise, we're creating the people that are creating more and more of the dysfunction.
There's one other quick question I have, if I'm not imposing on you, or Armstrong.
You're not imposing on me.
No, I'm talking to Armstrong, because I know, I don't want to block him out. We're hearing more and more about kids with learning disabilities, autism. In fact, my youngest son has a form of Asperger's, and thank God he's doing incredibly well. He did a science, technology, engineering program today at college this past summer and was amazingly successful. But it seems as though, because of budgetary crises, they're cutting back on so many of these amazing programs, whether it's early intervention and other such programs. Are you seeing the fallout from that?
Yes. Yeah, and the federal and state mandates and statutes are not changing. What's changing is the economic pinch on public schools, even private schools, which aren't mandated to do the same, but public schools and universities, colleges and universities. They're just by economic pressures, they are reducing the personnel that could intervene, and they're cutting back on those programs just by definition. They don't have the resources. And so the mandates haven't really changed, but we are seeing a pullback from resources.
My concern is, I believe if it weren't for early intervention, we would be in a very different situation with my youngest. It's been amazing to see his transformation, and I know how many other kids are out there in that situation, especially younger children, who the parents are first finding to their horror that their children are on the autism spectrum.
Yeah. Well, you're exactly right. That's been my experience over 30-something years of being around this, but again, it's hard to prove the negative. How do you go back and say, yeah, if you didn't catch them early, just think what would be. It's just very difficult. These are really emotional and heart-wrenching situations many times.
Well, I have to tell you, this is very fascinating. Are there any steps that you can guide young adults to avoid having to move back home and to make it work on their own?
One of them, it's not a popular one because we're really pushing education, and I'm a huge fan of education, but one of them is if you don't have parents that are paying your way and you haven't earned scholarships and you're having to borrow money, don't be just going headlong into school until you're better established. And, you may go back to the old ways of going into the military first, or getting a job and taking some night courses or weekend courses or online stuff that we have now. And don't dig a deep hole for yourself. Be realistic.
But don't you think parents can detect some early signs in their children? Listen, and what percentage of these kids would you say return home?
I would say, it's a great question. I'm just going to guess because I don't know the statistics on it. I think it's more than it used to be, and I would say somewhere between 10 and 20%.
That's high.
And maybe that has increased here in the last couple of years because of economic pressures, but I still don't think it's the majority.
No.
I think the drive to independence is so strong that most of us just don't want to go back home. And it's not, usually it's not because we don't get along with our folks. It's because that doesn't feel good. You want to strive and make it on your own. That's a great feeling to have that kind of autonomy. And so there's a lot of motivation to work 2 jobs, do whatever it takes to make it. And I think that's still the rule.
But do our young children have the work ethic, the discipline, the sacrifice, and the risk-taking that we have and continue to have?
I don't think so, but when you see the ones that are doing it, you almost want to change your mind because it's like, oh my gosh, under these kinds of conditions, there are some that are just flourishing, but they're working very hard. 2 or 3 jobs. I know that's what I did to make it through school and have a family and all, but, I don't think that's what we generally see, of course, but there are still kids that are doing that, and it does your heart good to see people digging down deep and doing what they need to do to stand on their own 2 feet.
Oh, wow. Listen, this is a fascinating conversation that just could go on and on and on. Michael, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I just think that Dr. Barnard's insights are really important. And I think, if anything, hopefully people see a little bit of a cautionary tale there. This idea about taking parenting seriously so that, you put the effort in today so that tomorrow's a little bit better. Would you agree, Doc?
I do. I agree completely, Michael. And that can be a bitter pill when you feel like you failed, but it is a cautionary tale, and I would sure hope that we can do something to turn this around and get to young folks earlier, way before they even leave our home, to give them a better sense of parenting.
Do you find that single-parent homes are more likely to have these issues than traditional family homes?
They're more likely. Again, you see some, though, that just seem like they overcome all odds, and they're a single parent. And so I know that you can do that, but just look at the additional weight that's put on your shoulders when you don't have a parenting partner and a supportive extended family. That's a tough job.
Michael, it's so fascinating seeing you in the role as a parent today and not some immigration expert. It tames you.
Well, I always considered being a parent my most important job. I have 4 wonderful kids. I was a single parent for a while. My first wife passed away when our son was 22 months old. He's now a successful mechanical engineer. And
oh my gosh.
I'm hoping my youngest follows in his footsteps.
Listen, I want to thank you.
I congratulate you.
Yes. Dr. Barnard, what's your webpage address?
www.thepower-parent.com.
Michael, yours?
MichaelCutler.net, and of course CAPSWeb.org, Californians for Population Stabilization. Great joining you guys.
Thank you both so much for joining us. Thank you both.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
You too. And thank you for this edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. You can always email us at info@rightsidewire.com. You can listen to us on Sirius 110 every evening, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. live. Always want to give kudos to wonderful people at WGCV. Shout out Twitter, Facebook at A Right Side. Give a shout out to Tony and give a shout out to Yolanda and WGCV family and Dietrich, Tony and everybody else. Good day, everyone.
For more information on the Armstrong